I never thought anyone would notice me in that place. Not with the noise, the suits, the polished laughter. But then she walked in, scanning the room like she owned it, and chose the empty stool beside mine. For the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't invisible. Most mornings in my house start before the sun's even thought about climbing up. That old alarm clock on my nightstand buzzes at 5:30 sharp. No mercy, no snooze button. I've never believed in putting things off. Life doesn't usually hand out second chances, so I learned to get up on the first ring. Feet on the floor, coffee pot gurgling before I've even rubbed the sleep out of my eyes. Black coffee, no sugar, nothing fancy. By the time the mug's half empty, I'm packing lunch for my little girl, Emily. She's 7, stubborn as her old man, and thinks grilled cheese is fine dining as long as it's cut into triangles. Her lunchbox still has a sticker on the lid from years back. I'd written in marker, "You got this, Daddy?" the day her mom walked out. She slapped a unicorn sticker right beside it like she was giving me her stamp of approval. Neither of us has peeled them off since. Thing is, I wasn't always under hoods and covered in grease. Once upon a time, I sat behind drafting tables sketching buildings I thought I'd see rise against city skylines. But life doesn't always follow the map. When Emily's mom left, the house went cold, diapers still needed changing, and bills didn't stop showing up. Blueprints couldn't pay for daycare, but brake pads could. So I hung up the architect's pen and picked up a wrench. That's how Turner Auto came to life. Corner of Main and 3rd, nothing flashy, just a faded sign that's seen too many summers and a waiting room that smells like old tires and burnt coffee. But every car that rolls out of there has my word stamped on it. Fixed right, no shortcuts. Folks don't always see me for who I am. They see the flannel, the calloused hands, the grease under my nails. To most, I'm just another working guy. But inside, I've always been more than what they figure at first glance. Evenings are my favorite. Dinner by 6:30, dishes in the sink, Emily's bedtime at 8 sharp. That's when I read her a story, clap for her off-key songs, or sit with her through tears when some kid at school leaves her out. Holidays get quiet with just the two of us, but I still hang the stockings anyway. Life's not big, but it's steady. I've never chased applause. Don't post my parenting wins online. Don't brag about bills paid or water heaters fixed. I just do what needs doing and keep moving. That's how I see responsibility. You don't wait for someone to notice. You just keep showing up. That rhythm, that quiet, it carried me for years. Until one Thursday night. My buddy Mike had been pestering me for weeks, saying I needed a beer and a change of scenery. The babysitter showed up late, and I almost canceled. But I wiped my hands, pulled on the only decent shirt I owned, and followed him down to Carter's Bar and Grill. I figured it would be nothing special. Just a drink, maybe a laugh, and then back home. I didn't know it yet, but that night was the beginning of a shift. A reminder of how the world sees a man like me, and how, sometimes, that picture's got it all wrong. The place was already humming when I walked in. Carter's Bar and Grill was the kind of joint that thought dim amber light and polished leather booths made it classy. It didn't. Still, it beat staring at my kitchen table for another night. I grabbed a stool near the middle, ordered a whiskey, and tried to relax. Didn't take long for the suits in the back corner to notice me. They were loud, too loud, the kind of laughter that wasn't about joy, but about making sure everyone else knew they were having a good time. Their watches flashed like trophies every time they raised a glass. I felt their eyes on me before the words came. "Bet he's just here for the happy hour fries," one of them said, not bothering to lower his voice. Another chimed in. "Guy looks like he fixed the dishwasher on his way over." Single dads don't build empires. They mop up after them. I didn't flinch. Didn't even look their way. I just stared at the ice swirling in my glass, kept my shoulders square, my jaw set. Not angry, just steady. There's power in silence when you know who you are. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed her. She wasn't laughing. While the others leaned in over their whiskey, she just sat back, watching. You couldn't miss her. Tall, tailored coat, presence that didn't need to announce itself. I didn't know her name then, but she carried herself like somebody who owned half the skyline downtown. I expected nothing. Women like her didn't sit beside men like me. But the next night, she proved me wrong. Friday evening, same time, same bar. I figured I'd just grab a drink before heading home. But there she was, walking in alone. No entourage, no noise, just her scanning the room until her eyes landed on me. And instead of finding a booth or a table full of her kind of people, She walked straight to the stool next to mine. "Didn't think you'd be back," I said, voice steady. "Neither did I," she replied, smoothing her sleeve like she needed something to do with her hands. "But here I am." We didn't talk about her world of boardrooms and real estate. Didn't talk about my shop, either. Instead, it was coffee, how strong you should drink it, the best way to make grilled cheese, the sound tires make on gravel roads in the fall. Simple things. Real things. And she leaned into it like she hadn't breathed that kind of air in years. Across the room, the corner booth went quiet. One of the suits stood, smirk plastered on his face as he walked over. Tall guy, expensive suit, the kind of man who'd never been told no often enough. He put his glass down beside her. "Claire," he said, voice full of too much charm. "Didn't expect to see you here again." She smiled politely. "Just needed a break from boardrooms." His eyes flicked toward me. No handshake, no courtesy. "And you are?" "Jack?" I said simply, meeting his stare without blinking. He gave a soft laugh. "The mechanic. Interesting company you're keeping, Claire. Thought we were meeting investors tomorrow, not prepping for a garage sale." Her jaw tightened, but I didn't move. I just set my glass down and looked him dead in the eye. "You know," I said quietly, "sometimes the guy who changes your oil knows more about engines than the one driving the car." The smirk faltered, just for a second. Claire glanced at me, and I could tell she wasn't used to someone cutting through noise that clean. That night, the air shifted. She came back not because of the bar, or the whiskey, or the noise from the corner booth. She came back because for once, maybe, she'd found a conversation that didn't feel like a performance. By the third Thursday, it had turned into a quiet routine. Same stool, same drink, same bar that smelled faintly of whiskey and old leather. Claire always walked in alone, and we'd end up talking about little things that didn't matter on paper but felt real. Those nights were steady, calm, and honest. But steady doesn't last long when a man like Nathan Kelton's in the room. Nathan was her business partner, old money, slicker than oil on pavement, and twice as hard to wash off. That night, he stood up from the corner booth, glass in hand, and made his way over. He had the grin of someone who thought the world owed him attention, and most of the time, it did. "Claire," he said, laying the charm on thick. "Didn't expect to see you slumming it here again." She kept her voice polite. "Not everything has to be a boardroom, Nathan." His gaze shifted to me. He didn't bother with a handshake. "And this is Jack?" I said flat, meeting his stare like I was looking down a socket wrench. Nathan gave a scoff, the kind that drips with amusement at someone else's expense. "The mechanic. Cute. You know, Claire, you really are full of surprises. Thought we'd be meeting investors, not prepping for a garage sale." Her jaw tightened, but I wasn't rattled. I leaned back, let him talk. Then, when he smirked like he'd already won, I set my glass down and asked him quietly, "You ever lose a client at 2 in the morning because their brakes failed on the interstate?" The smirk slipped. He blinked. "Can't say I have." "I have," I said, voice steady. "And I've had to look their kid in the eye and explain why the fix came too late." Silence hit the space between us, heavy and uncomfortable. Claire's fingers froze against the rim of her glass. "See," I continued, not raising my voice, just letting the truth settle. "You don't need a boardroom to understand responsibility. You just need someone counting on you every single day." For the first time, Nathan didn't have a comeback. His grin was still on his face, but it was stretched too tight, covering nerves he couldn't hide. He laughed it off, muttered something about different leagues, and walked back to his booth. Claire let out a breath she'd been holding. "You didn't have to do that," she said softly. I looked at her, steady as ever. "Didn't do it for you." Her lips tugged into the faintest smile, one that wasn't about amusement, but about recognition. "I know." Rain started outside, soft against the windows, steady like a drumbeat. Inside, the bar went back to its usual hum. But for Claire, something had shifted. She wasn't looking at me like some guy in flannel anymore. She was looking at me like someone who didn't bend to noise, someone who knew how to stand his ground without needing to raise his voice. And Nathan? He might have walked away that night, but men like him never leave well enough alone. I didn't know it yet, but our paths were headed for a bigger clash, one that would make the whole bar, and Claire's entire firm, see me differently. 2 weeks later, Carter's wasn't just another Thursday night hangout. It was a powder keg waiting for a spark. Claire's firm had just landed the kind of contract that puts people on magazine covers, some massive development deal they called the Monroe Project. Nathan Kelton strutted into the bar like he'd personally built the skyline. Chest puffed, tie loosened, ready to celebrate himself. I was already at the bar, same stool, same drink. Claire came in late, and the moment she saw me, she made a beeline straight to the empty seat at my side. The suits in the back noticed, of course. Nathan most of all. He swaggered over, glass sloshing in his hand. "Claire," he said loud enough for half the room to hear. "When are you going to bring your new friend into the big leagues? Or are we still pretending flannel is just a fashion choice?" I didn't move. Claire didn't either. Nathan leaned in closer, smirk sharp as a blade. "Come on. If this guy's got all that wisdom, let's hear his take on the Monroe deal." I turned slow, steady. "The Monroe deal?" "Yeah," he said with a chuckle. "The one where we're tearing down that old warehouse district off 8th. Replacing it with condos. Big money." I frowned. "That area's zone mixed use, isn't it?" Nathan waved a hand. "So what? So you're about to create traffic bottlenecks from both residential and commercial lanes. And the soil's unstable. I had a garage 2 blocks from there years back. It flooded every spring. You'll need 3 feet of soil remediation at least. Build condos on that land without fixing it, and your foundations will shift inside of 5 years." The smirk vanished. His jaw twitched. Claire turned to him, voice sharp. "Is that true?" He stalled. "That's exaggerated. We had engineers. Did they check last year's flood data?" I asked. "Or the redevelopment plans the city council filed? They're public record." Silence. Nathan's face went stiff. Claire pulled out her phone, tapping quick. Within a minute, her expression hardened. "Jack's right," she said flat. "Public Works flagged soil mitigation last fall. You missed it, Nathan." I didn't think it was relevant," he stammered. "You didn't think," Claire cut him off. "You wanted a fast headline. You didn't care what came after." The room had gone quiet. Half the bar was listening now. Claire turned to me. "How did you know all that?" I shrugged. "I used to draft buildings. Old habits die hard. Still read city plans after Emily's in bed. Can't turn that part of my brain off." Nathan tried to laugh it off, but it sounded hollow. "So what are you now? An architect turned oil changer?" I faced him fully for the first time. "No. I'm a dad who keeps reading because I care about the world my daughter's going to grow up in." That shut him down for good. Claire didn't look away from me, not once. Her voice was quiet but certain. "I should have brought you in on this sooner. Would you consider consulting with us on this project?" I paused, thinking about my shop, my daughter, the steady life I'd built. Then I nodded. "If it means you don't build something that collapses in 5 years, yeah, I'll do it." The air in the bar shifted. Not loud applause, not a cheer. Just a hush, the kind that happens when people realize they've been seeing someone all wrong. For the first time in a long time, the eyes on me weren't dismissive. They were curious, respectful. And Nathan? He sat back in his booth, glass untouched, pride leaking out of him like air from a punctured tire. By spring, the change was obvious. Not in headlines or flashy ribbon cuttings, but on the ground where it mattered. That empty lot on 8th Street, the one fenced off with rusted chain link, wasn't silent anymore. Instead of bulldozers, there were clipboards, muddy boots, and groups of young planners walking the site every Thursday morning. And there I was, the same guy they once laughed at in a bar, showing them how water moved through soil, how drainage lines needed to run, and why a foundation means nothing if you don't respect what's beneath it. I wasn't wearing a suit. Never will. Still had my flannel, sleeves rolled up, wrench sticking out of the back pocket from the alternator I fixed that morning. But now, when I spoke, people listened. Not because I raised my voice, but because I said things that came from lived experience, not theory. Claire's firm had started something new after the Monroe deal was saved. They called it Foundations, a program built on the idea that working people's knowledge matters just as much as boardroom strategy. And Claire? She named me lead advisor. Not a title for show, but with real say. I split my time between Turner Auto and the field, teaching planners and junior execs how to see what's in front of them, not just what's on paper. Emily came with me sometimes, Fridays after school. She'd sit on the tailgate of my truck, swinging her legs, watching me talk about runoff and frost lines like it was some kind of magic. She didn't see a man once laughed at by suits with shiny watches. She saw her dad, steady, reliable, the one who never missed a bedtime story. Her hero, even if she didn't say it out loud. And Claire? She came around more often now, sometimes with contracts to review, sometimes with nothing more than 2 coffees and a smile. She'd stand beside me on those lots, heels crunching against gravel, and admit, I used to think leadership meant speeches and corner offices. Sometimes it does, I'd answer, eyes still on the ground. But most of the time it just means being accountable. She'd nod slowly. That's why they listen to you. Back at Carter's, Thursday nights hadn't changed much. I still walked in around 6, still ordered the same drink, still nodded at Tony the bartender like we'd been friends for years. But the air felt different now. When I came through the door, heads didn't turn out of curiosity. They turned out of respect. Even Nathan, who'd once smirked and sneered, now gave me a quiet nod from his booth. Not overdone, just enough to show he finally understood. And Claire? She never missed a Thursday. Always the same stool next to mine, whether we talked about projects, about Emily, or about nothing at all. No pretenses, no performances. Just 2 people who'd found a little peace in a noisy world. I never asked for any of it. Consulting roles, respect from strangers, recognition in a bar full of people who once laughed me off. All I ever did was show up, day after day, with steady hands and a good heart. Turns out, sometimes that's enough to change the way people build. Not just buildings, but lives.